Hey guys, it's Sajid Dam1 again here with yet another new video for you guys, and in today's episode I'm going to be highlighting a handful of wonderful Xbox 360 Cave bullet hell shoot 'em ups. And I'm a big fan of shoot 'em ups and I'm a big fan of Cave, so we're going to check out a handful of the games that they put out on the Xbox 360 on today's episode. Now, to give a little backstory on the company themselves before I start talking about the games, Cave is a really wonderful game developer who's been around since 1994 when they were founded, and they're really well renowned for their bullet hell shoot 'em ups or shoot 'em ups in general. They've become very popular for their work in the shoot 'em up field, and a lot of their early shmups were kind of inspired by some really classic old school shmups. But they're not just known for that, they also make a wide variety of other games for the arcades, mobile platforms, and consoles. Various other games they make include racing games, actually, and some visual novel games. And interestingly enough, they were actually a developer for Shin Megami Tensei Imagines, so SMT fans will know that as a SMT online game or the MMORPG. They were actually a developer for that. So they've been really active, and I really appreciate them, and they're just a really wonderful company. And the first game we're going to go ahead and check out from Cave is Deathsmiles. And Deathsmiles is an interesting game. It came out a little bit earlier on the Xbox 360. And it came out and it was just so bizarre when it came out. Like, a lot of people weren't quite aware of what it was, and I think it came out at a time where bullet hell shmups were starting to just kind of find their niche. I mean, bullet hell shmups have kind of evolved in popularity, and they're still a very niche kind of genre. But if you don't know the topic of bullet hell shmups, it's basically shmups that involve a ridiculous amount of bullets on the screen. I mean, it's just absurd, and it becomes this kind of matter of trying to navigate your kind of hitbox through all these elaborate patterns of bullets. I mean, it's absolutely surreal if you never played a bullet hell shmup, and in the same regards, it can be a little bit overwhelming for people who've never played a bullet hell shmup. And the reason I'm starting off by checking out Deathsmiles is because I think it's probably one of the more approachable bullet hell shmups that I'm going to be showing. But Deathsmiles is an interesting horizontal scrolling bullet hell shmup. It's got this interesting mechanic where you can actually shoot in different directions, so you can shoot behind you and in front of you, because enemies will come from various sides of the screen as they're trying to attack you. So it also has this kind of interesting aesthetic to it. It's very heavy based on like occult and kind of gothic styles and settings and vibes, so all the characters and all that are very kind of occult-like, and the girls are very dressed in this kind of Lolita fashion. So it's interesting if you kind of like that aesthetic to it. And it's got this interesting mechanic where you can kind of build up a kind of counter gauge, and this counter gauge would go up all the way to 1,000. And that basically allows you to pull off some stronger shots, and it'll give you stronger shots for a limited amount of time as the counter goes down. It's just a super interesting game, though. The boss design is absolutely absurd. There's a huge variety in bosses. Like, one of them is like a zombie cow. So it's obviously a game that doesn't take itself seriously. It's just a really strange game. It has an interesting mechanic where it kind of has like this overworld mechanic where you can kind of choose your path through the game. You can choose the stage you want to play, and you can choose your kind of route through the game. And as you choose stages, it'll get harder and harder. But that's just an interesting mechanic to kind of mix it up every time, deciding your own path through the game. So it's a really interesting shmup. It's one of the more approachable ones in my opinion, because I feel like it's a little bit easier compared to some of the other shmups that Cave has done. But that is the wonderful Deathsmiles on the Xbox 360. And the next Cave shoot 'em up we're going to take a look at is the wonderful Akai Katana on the Xbox 360. This is published by Rising Star Games, and it was kind of a historic game because it was the first game Rising Star had ever published in the US, and sadly, because this game didn't actually sell that well, I think it's probably going to be one of the last games that Rising Star published stateside. But a lot of European folks should be familiar with Rising Star. They're a company who brings out a lot of kind of niche style games from various companies like Atlas, Exceed, and they bring them out and publish them in Europe. So it's a really wonderful thing that they do. But to talk about Akai Katana is a wonderful, another horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up, bullet hell shoot 'em up. and it has this awesome like Japanese feudal aesthetic going on with kind of feudal military ships and stuff like that. And it's this interesting concept where it's really heavily rooted on some sort of mythology, Japanese mythology. But it's pretty straightforward. It does have some really interesting and a lot of intricate mechanics to kind of take into account. And the game doesn't do too much of a good job explaining some of these mechanics. You kind of got to learn them on your own. But there's this kind of option that you gather these kind of energy orbs or these kind of energy things to charge up like an energy meter, and you can use various options. So what you can do is you can pull off these really awesome strong kind of katana shots, and you'll shoot like all these really big katanas, and the benefit to that is that it obviously does more damage but will also pierce enemy bullets, so it'll protect you for a while. And that's just a really awesome option. But then you have this other option that you can summon what they call a phantom, and a phantom is basically like this other character who will come in and fight for you for an extended amount of time until the gauge runs out, and they'll do a lot more damage and kind of protect you and stuff like that. So it has a lot of intricate mechanics to it, and the bosses are really interesting. The bosses are kind of inspired by this Ten Sons old school mythological tale about the Ten Sons, and kind of more rooted towards Chinese mythology there. But it's just a really interesting blend of a shoot 'em up that blends kind of mythology with this horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up. It's a very challenging game, I will say that. It's one of the more challenging shmups. It's definitely not a beginner's kind of shmup. It's punishing and it has various modes to kind of choose from. But overall, I think it's just a really wonderful game. It's got a rocking soundtrack too. It's got an absolutely awesome soundtrack. But if you're a shmup fan and you're looking for a shmup with kind of a heavily rooted on mythology, but it will definitely give you a significant challenge, and that is the wonderful Akai Katana, just a wonderfully beautiful shoot 'em up. And the final game we're going to check out from all these cave shmups is probably one of my personal favorites. Sadly, it never did get a physical release stateside, so this is actually an import from Europe, and it's from the company I mentioned before, Rising Star Games. But this is a wonderful, wonderful Dodonpachi Resurrection Deluxe Edition. And Dodonpachi, or as it's known as the core kind of name, it's called Donpachi. And Donpachi actually dates back quite a ways. I mean, it actually dates back to the kind of birth of Cave as a company. So Donpachi was a popular shmup when it came out with the PS1 and the Sega Saturn. So it evolved into a huge shoot 'em up series for them, and probably one of the most notable shmup series, as it enlisted various iterations throughout the years. So, and it still is continuing strong today, obviously, as we have Dodonpachi Resurrection. And this is a fantastic vertical scrolling shoot 'em up with this kind of heavy interest and kind of futuristic dystopian kind of style and aesthetic going for it. And it's just an awesome shmup. Like, it's got an awesome, awesome soundtrack. It's got this interesting mechanic that you can have a kind of counter that builds up, and you can use kind of a really strong kind of charge shot, and this kind of charge shot will kind of allow you to kind of destroy enemy bullets while still shooting. It does have this interesting mechanic to choose from various styles, so you can choose like a bomb style, which allows you to have and possess more bombs. So that's awesome because bombs do various damage, and they do a lot of damage. But there's also this option to choose from a power style, and the power style is interesting because at any given moment you can switch between normal or what they call boost mode. And the boost mode basically allows you to kind of increase your fire rate for an extended time, but the downside to it is that it decreases your movement speed, so you can kind of just juggle that. So there's some interesting mechanics there to kind of switch up how you play, and you can kind of play how you want. So if you're someone who prefers more having more bombs, or if you're someone who prefers some quicker shots, you can just kind of choose how you want to play. Various ships to choose from, various modes to choose from, like all these shmups. And just a really, really wonderful, wonderful game. And if you're a fan of the kind of series like Donpachi, I think it's definitely a great iteration into the series, and probably some, honestly, Cave's best work right here. And I love Cave for this, and the Dodonpachi series, I hope it just keeps evolving because it's just a beautiful series from them. So that's Dodonpachi Resurrection for the Xbox 360. This is a European import copy. The European version is region free, and it's kind of one of the only ways to play it because I believe the Japanese version is region locked, and it never came out stateside. So I highly recommend importing it if you're a big shmup fan. That's Dodonpachi Resurrection. So there you have it, guys. This wraps up this episode on some Xbox 360 Cave Bullet Hell shoot 'em ups. This is just a handful. There's a lot more cave shoot 'em ups that I could talk about, particularly on the 360, that I still want to pick up. And a lot of you just have to be careful when you're trying to look for import cave shmups, because some of them are region free and some of them are not. It really depends on whether cave region locks them or not. But there's definitely some other cave shmups I want to pick up that are region free that I'm interested in playing. But I'm a big shmup fan, even though, to be honest, I'm not the best at them. I'm not the best at bullet hell shmups in general, but I still really appreciate them. And I can deny that they could be addictive, just trying to get up a high score with all these counters and multiplier meters and stuff like that, and just trying to beat your score. It's really addicting in that kind of old school kind of fashion. So I love shmups. I'll continue to play them, and I think K is just a wonderful company that's really powering the genre and just keeping the genre alive. And it's a very niche genre in general. So as again, I'd like to thank you guys for watching this episode, and until next time, I'll see you guys later, guys. Bye.